Welcome back to the Golden Ancient Tales, where the oldest stories are told like warm fireside whispers. Tonight, we explore a different kind of myth, not the dramatic ones, not the loud battles, but the slow, soothing, slightly boring Greek myths perfect for sleep, with just enough magic to keep you curious before your eyes grow heavy. So relax, take a breath, and let's begin. But before we dive into Mount Olympus, don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop a comment telling me which Greek god you think would make the worst roommate. All right, your pillow awaits. Let's start the tale. The story truly begins long before temples, heroes, or bedtime narrations, back when the universe was still in its early access version, and everything needed a supervisor. The Titans had tried running things, but let's just say their leadership style was more loud family meeting than divine order. So the job of world management eventually landed in the hands of a young, ambitious storm enthusiast named Zeus. Zeus wasn't born into peace. Oh no, he was born into a survival tutorial. His father, Cronus, had a habit of swallowing his children for security reasons, which is both questionable parenting and a logistical nightmare. Luckily for Zeus, his mother Rhea decided she'd had enough of that behavior and swapped baby Zeus for a rock wrapped in blankets. Cronus ate the rock. He didn't notice. Titans apparently don't double-check meals. Zeus grew up hidden away in a cave on the island of Crete, raised by mystical caretakers, nymphs, and a goat named Amalthea, whose milk was basically divine baby formula. If you ever wondered why Zeus became powerful enough to reorder the universe, credit the goat. Once grown, Zeus returned, tricked Cronus into regurgitating his siblings. Long story, lots of vomiting. And kicked off the legendary Titan God Civil War, also known as the first season finale of Greek mythology. After 10 long years of combat, dramatic speeches, and sibling bonding through warfare, Zeus and his siblings won. The Titans were sent to the Underworld basement, and Zeus was promoted to CEO of the sky. Now here's where the boring for sleep part begins. Zeus's responsibilities included maintaining thunderstorms, approving rain schedules, keeping the sky aesthetically skyish, tossing lightning bolts when necessary, and sometimes when unnecessary, settling disputes between gods who definitely should have tried meditation instead. His favorite tool was his lightning bolt, forged by the Cyclopes, a group of one-eyed craftsmen who were brilliant, terrifying, and shockingly efficient at manufacturing weapons for people who shout a lot. Zeus didn't throw lightning randomly. Well, not always. Sometimes it was justice. Sometimes it was impulse control issues. But mostly, it was weather administration. A typical day on Olympus for Zeus looked like this. He woke up to the sound of clouds gently existing. He stretched, causing distant thunder. He checked his sky clipboard. Yes, apparently there was one. He listened to prayers from mortals, which ranged from heartfelt to slightly unreasonable like, "Zeus, please make my neighbor's goat shut up." He considered it. He ignored it. Then he made the sun rise, which technically wasn't his job, but leadership comes with unpaid side quests. Despite his immense power, Zeus was shockingly human and routine. He enjoyed dramatic entrances, loud declarations, napping after storms, collecting clouds like they were unread emails, looking majestic while doing very administrative tasks. He ruled not because it was exciting, but because someone had to make sure the sky didn't fall or accidentally become soup. And though his lightning lit the heavens, his story, in its essence, was less action, more responsibility, less war, more weather, less danger, more divine HR management. Not exactly thrilling, but undeniably iconic. And that, dear listener, is how the world's most powerful sky god became the universe's busiest storm administrator, the ruler of lightning, thunder, and slightly repetitive celestial duties. A perfect beginning to a myth, and a perfect moment to slowly drift into sleep. While Zeus managed storms and lightning bolts, there was someone keeping an eye on everything else. Someone whose job was mostly about patience, judgment, and silently wondering how immortals ever survived living together. That someone was Hera, queen of the gods, goddess of marriage, family, and long-suffering sighs. Hera's throne was grand, taller than mountains, gilded with gold, and surrounded by clouds shaped like slightly judgmental eyebrows. From this majestic seat, she spent her days mostly watching Zeus. Sometimes Zeus was fighting monsters. Sometimes he was causing storms. Sometimes he was flirting with minor goddesses. Hera's daily routine often involved a very Greek combination of eye-rolling and sighing. Despite what legends might suggest, Hera wasn't evil. She wasn't plotting endless schemes just for fun. Well, not always. She was a goddess of rules, order, and the occasional divine lecture. She believed deeply in marriage, mostly as a concept she hoped Zeus would honor sometimes. And when he didn't, Hera's strategy was subtle, slow, and patient, like watching a tree grow, except occasionally throwing minor curses for dramatic effect. Her powers were interesting in their own quiet way. She could influence loyalty and love, protect families and marriages, even the messy ones, give a most chilling side-eye in Olympus. Hera had divine elegance, always poised, always graceful, like a celestial model who just happened to run a bureaucratic department of immortals. She loved order, beauty, and things staying in their proper place. She did not love chaos, thunderstorms, or Zeus's random whims. Hera's life was a mixture of routine, observation, and occasional divine plotting. Her hobbies included counting stars to ensure none wandered off course, supervising wedding ceremonies across Greece, whispering instructions to mortals who sought her blessing, rolling her eyes at Zeus. Some myths say that Hera was responsible for inspiring some of the most boring, yet oddly fascinating tales in Greek mythology. Why? Because her stories weren't about fighting monsters or dramatic quests. They were about persistence, patience, and the slow, quiet management of the world, which, in the end, was just as important as throwing a lightning bolt. And here's a little-known fact. Even though she was often frustrated, Hera had a sense of humor. She would occasionally send tiny, harmless reminders to Zeus, like a cloud shaped like a question mark or a bird mimicking his voice. Little nudges that said, "Really, Zeus?" Again. So while Zeus thundered, struck, and ruled, Hera silently made sure the universe didn't completely fall apart. She was the queen of order, the goddess of patience, and the unspoken hero of Mount Olympus. Not flashy, not chaotic, but essential. And as the sun slowly dipped toward the horizon, even Hera found a moment of calm, a moment to sip ambrosia, watch the clouds drift lazily, and quietly plan how she might survive another day with Zeus, the sky's most unpredictable employee. While Zeus ruled the skies and Hera ruled patience, there was someone else keeping life lively in a very wet, very dramatic way. That someone was Poseidon, god of the sea, earthquakes, and occasional overreactions. Poseidon's home wasn't on a mountain or in a throne room. No, he lived under the waves, in a palace made of coral, seashells, and slightly inconvenient kelp. From there, he oversaw every ocean, river, and stream, which, as you might imagine, is a lot of water. Poseidon was powerful, sure, but he also had the emotional range of a stormy tide. Some days he was calm, gentle, and soothing, like the soft sound of waves on the shore. Other days he was dramatic, very dramatic. He could make the sea churn and foam just because someone forgot to thank him in a prayer. He carried his trident, a three-pronged spear forged in the old Titan days. It was a symbol of authority, a tool for creating tides, and sometimes just a fancy back-scratcher. Legend says Poseidon once poked a rock with it and accidentally created a minor island, not because he planned to, just because he was bored. Despite his flair for chaos, Poseidon had his hobbies. He loved talking to dolphins. They were his informal counsel, shaping waves into aesthetically pleasing curls, inventing storms for the occasional dramatic effect, racing horses across the land. Yes, he also invented horses. Don't ask how. Poseidon's personality could be summed up like this. If there's water, I'll control it. If there's drama, I'll create it. If there's boredom, I'll flood something just to feel alive. And even though he liked chaos, he wasn't cruel. Most of the time, he simply wanted attention, recognition, and maybe a little excitement in his very watery kingdom. One story tells of sailors who were lost at sea. Poseidon could have been terrifying, but instead, he mostly nudged their boats gently or caused a small storm to get their attention, enough to remind them he existed. His power wasn't subtle. His methods weren't quiet. But there was an oddly soothing rhythm to the rise and fall of his waves, if you were brave enough to float along. And so, while Zeus thundered, Hera sighed, and the world spun quietly below, Poseidon's oceans moved in a gentle, dramatic ballet. Waves rose. Waves fell. Fish swam in curious patterns. And the god of the sea kept the rhythm of the world, one slow, rhythmic splash at a time. If you listened carefully, you could almost hear him hum, a watery lullaby for the land above, and for the gods too, reminding everyone that even chaos can be calming if you just let it flow. While Zeus managed the skies, Hera managed patience, and Poseidon managed the oceans, there was one god quietly handling the most administrative role in the universe. That god was Hades, ruler of the Underworld, manager of the dead, and permanent night shift employee. Hades' home wasn't glamorous like Olympus or Coral Palace like Poseidon's. It was dark, echoing, and full of corridors, perfect for someone who preferred quiet, routine, and minimal small talk. From his throne of obsidian and shadow, Hades oversaw the souls of the departed. And trust me, there were a lot of souls. His job was simple in theory: guide them to the afterlife, keep things in order, and make sure no one escaped prematurely. In practice, endless paperwork, endless questions, and occasional complaints from spirits who forgot the underworld rules. If Hades had a motto, it would be, dead or alive, everyone has a line to stand in. Unlike other gods, Hades wasn't flashy. He didn't throw storms, invent things, or start petty arguments. He was calm, measured, and a bit introverted. His pet, Cerberus, the three-headed dog, helped him with security. Cerberus was terrified of outsiders, but mostly just loyal, drooly, and surprisingly obedient. A little like a large, immortal guard dog with three opinions at once. Hades didn't often leave the underworld. Why would he? The world above was loud, chaotic, and exhausting. He preferred long walks in shadowy halls, counting souls for fun, listening to Cerberus argue with himself, 3 heads, 3 moods, making sure every ghost was in the right afterlife department. Some myths say Hades kidnapped Persephone, but the real story is he just needed a companion who appreciated quiet evenings, candlelight, and minimal drama. Persephone turned out to be perfect for this. She enjoyed flowers, routines, and, oddly enough, long walks through gloomy corridors. Together, they made the underworld a place that wasn't terrifying, just calm, orderly, and a little sleepy. Even though mortals feared him, Hades had a soft side. He took pride in keeping the balance of life and death. Without him, souls might wander aimlessly, rivers of the underworld could overflow, and chaos might reach the surface. So while he seemed boring compared to lightning storms or ocean waves, Hades' job was quietly heroic. And as night draped the earth above, Hades settled into his routine, reviewing lists, patting Cerberus, and humming a low tune. From the shadows, he kept the world running smoothly, proving that even the most ordinary-seeming roles can be essential and even comforting. While Zeus ruled the skies, Hera watched with judgment, Poseidon stirred the seas, and Hades managed the underworld, there was one goddess quietly shaping the rhythm of life itself: Demeter, goddess of harvest, crops, and the gentle pulse of the earth. Demeter's job might seem simple at first glance: grow plants, nurture the soil, and ensure that humans had food to eat. But her world was far more delicate than it appeared. Every seed she planted, every stalk she tended, depended on her attention, her mood, and her quiet, persistent care. She lived close to the earth, among fields of wheat and barley, orchards of apples and pomegranates, and meadows filled with wildflowers. Her days were slow, rhythmic, and soothing, walking through crops to check their progress, whispering encouragement to stubborn plants, ensuring rain fell just enough, not too much or too little, patting the soil like an old friend. And yet, even the calmest goddess could experience a dramatic shift. When her daughter, Persephone, was taken to the underworld by Hades, Demeter's grief was slow, steady, and very, very noticeable. In her sorrow, she accidentally caused the first winter. Crops stopped growing. Rivers flowed slower. Humans panicked. It wasn't rage exactly, just a quiet, persistent sadness that spread to the world. Eventually, Persephone returned, and Demeter's mood shifted back like the gentle turn of the seasons. Spring blossomed, crops grew tall again, and the earth exhaled with relief. Even in the drama of myth, her influence was measured, natural, and somehow comforting. Demeter's life might seem repetitive, sowing seeds, nurturing growth, repeating the cycle endlessly. But that repetition is exactly what kept the world alive, balanced, and quietly magical. Her power was subtle. It didn't strike like Zeus' lightning, roar like Poseidon's waves, or intimidate like Hades' shadows. Instead, it was gentle, continuous, and essential. And so, as the sun rose and set, as clouds drifted lazily across the sky, and as humans and animals went about their lives, Demeter continued her slow, quiet work. She taught the world a simple truth. Sometimes the most important power is patience, care, and quiet persistence. Even the smallest plants, she whispered, could survive and thrive with a little attention, just as a sleepy listener could drift deeper into calm and rest, carried along by the rhythm of her story. While Zeus thundered, Hera sighed, Poseidon splashed, Hades organized, and Demeter tended crops, there was one goddess who seemed to have the ultimate life hack for everything. Athena, goddess of wisdom, strategy, and very occasional judgment. Athena didn't have the dramatic responsibilities of her siblings. She wasn't tossing lightning bolts, controlling oceans, or managing underworld paperwork. Instead, she spent her time thinking, and sometimes thinking some more. Every problem, every conflict, every minor argument among the gods could be solved, sometimes before it even happened, thanks to her extraordinary intelligence. Athena was born in the most unusual way, fully grown, wearing armor and wise beyond measure, straight from Zeus's head. No childhood, no awkward teenage years, just an immediate here I am, problem solver, take notes entrance. It was impressive and slightly intimidating to everyone else on Olympus. Her hobbies were quiet but productive, teaching mortals useful skills, designing strategies for battles, even ones that didn't happen, inventing practical things like the olive tree, which humans appreciated more than wars, offering advice that was so sensible it made other gods sigh in frustration. Athena's personality could be summed up like this: calm, logical, and completely prepared for anything. She rarely panicked, because she had 14 solutions for every problem before breakfast. Her strength wasn't in flashy displays or dramatic gestures. It was in knowing what needed to be done, quietly, efficiently, and often without anyone noticing. She was also a bit of a perfectionist. If a war strategy didn't go perfectly, or if a mortal misunderstood a lesson, she would sigh, adjust her plan, and try again, always patient, always calm. It wasn't boring in a chaotic sense, just serene, methodical, and somehow reassuring. Athena reminded everyone, gods and humans alike, that intelligence and wisdom could be as powerful as lightning, waves, or even immortality itself. Her presence made Olympus feel balanced. Her plans kept chaos at bay, and if you listened closely, her calm voice seemed to echo in the wind, a reminder that even in a world of storms, there could be logic, strategy, and gentle guidance. So while the gods carried out their dramatic, noisy, and sometimes exhausting duties, Athena worked quietly in the background, a goddess of thought, a goddess of order, a goddess who reminded the universe that sometimes the most powerful things are invisible, like wisdom, patience, and the soft whisper of a well-timed plan. And as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Athena rested too, knowing the world was safer, calmer, and just a little wiser for her quiet diligence. And finally, we come to Apollo, god of the sun, music, prophecy, and just the right amount of dramatic flair, though even he knew when to slow down for the sake of calm. Apollo's job was simple but vital. Pull the sun across the sky each day. Imagine it. A glowing chariot streaking through the heavens, lighting the world below, keeping time for the seasons, the crops, and the rhythm of life itself. Every morning he rose, stretched, and began his journey. Gentle at first, then brighter, stronger, until noon when the world shined in full daylight. But Apollo didn't just move the sun. He played music, soft, soothing, and melodic, on his golden lyre. The notes floated down to earth, comforting mortals, calming animals, and occasionally making the gods stop whatever drama they were in just to listen. It wasn't music for battle or fame. It was music for peace, for rest, and for the quiet moments between chaos. Even Apollo had a soft side. He watched over healing, tended to oracles, and whispered prophecies gently to those willing to listen. His brilliance was never blinding. It was guiding, a light that warmed the earth, the gods, and even the slow, dozing mortal mind. As the day ended and the sun began to sink, Apollo slowed his chariot. The colors of the sky turned soft pinks and purples, a signal for rest, for reflection, for sleep. The gods on Olympus settled into their own routines. Zeus hung up his lightning bolts for the night. Hera sighed with satisfaction. Poseidon's waves softened. Hades dimmed the underworld lights. Demeter checked her fields one last time. Athena paused her strategies. And in this moment, with the sun slowly disappearing behind distant mountains, Apollo's soft music filled the universe. It was a lullaby of light and order, a reminder that even the gods, immortal, powerful, and sometimes dramatic, needed rest. And so, the world became calm, the sky quiet, the seas gentle, the earth at peace, and for anyone listening, it was the perfect moment to close your eyes, breathe slowly, and drift toward sleep. The gods had done their work. The world was in balance, and your journey through the slow, cozy myths of Greece had come to its gentle, soothing end. And as your eyelids grow heavy, remember, even the mightiest gods have quiet, peaceful moments. If you enjoyed drifting through the myths tonight, don't forget to subscribe to the Golden Ancient Tales, like the video, and comment your favorite god, or the one you'd most like to nap next to. Sleep well, dream gently, and tomorrow the myths will be waiting quietly to guide you again.